In an emotional and deeply impactful appearance on February 11th in Los Angeles, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, spoke to a group of parents who have lost their children under circumstances they believe are connected to harmful experiences on social media. Fighting back tears at times, he told the assembled families, "None of you should be here." His remarks came amid the opening of a landmark legal proceeding in the United States that seeks to hold major social media companies accountable for what plaintiffs say are addictive design features that contributed to severe mental health issues and tragic outcomes among children. That evening, the air at the gathering was heavy with grief, reflection, and hope. Around long dinner tables set in a private venue, families who have traveled from various parts of the United Kingdom and beyond sat together in solemn conversation. Each parent carried with them a story of profound loss and heartache, a narrative that has become all too familiar in recent years as conversations about social media's psychological and emotional impacts on young people have intensified. For these families, the Los Angeles gathering was more than a community gathering. It was a moment of solidarity, acknowledgement, and resolve. Prince Harry's attendance was not announced in advance, and his presence appeared to bring both comfort and a sense of broader recognition to the family's cause. Speaking to attendees, he acknowledged the complexities and emotional weight they bear, offering words that intertwined empathy, admiration, and calls for accountability that resonated with the gathering's somber purpose. A gathering born of grief and advocacy. The group of parents present in Los Angeles had convened as part of the early proceedings in a civil lawsuit filed in a California court against major social media platforms. Plaintiffs in the case allege that companies including Meta, the parent company of Instagram, and Google's YouTube have designed their platforms in ways that intentionally foster addiction, targeting young users with content that maximizes engagement at the expense of mental health and well-being. At the heart of the lawsuit are detailed accounts from families who recount how their children struggled with compulsive use, exposure to harmful content, cyberbullying, and persistent pressure to participate in trends and challenges they later identified as contributing to anxiety, depression, self-harm, and other tragic outcomes. Many of the parents present had spent years trying to understand what led to their children's struggles, seeking answers from sources as diverse as medical professionals, researchers, schools, and legal representatives. For these families, the Los Angeles gathering represented hope, a venue to be genuinely heard and seen rather than dismissed or minimized. The gathering occurred just as the courtroom battle was beginning, and emotions were especially raw as the civil trial commenced. Prince Harry's emotional speech. When Prince Harry stepped forward to address the group, his voice was measured but visibly emotional. In a setting that many described as intimate and heartfelt, the Duke spoke directly to the parents about the unbearable pain they have endured. "None of you should be here," he said, his voice breaking at moments, conveying a sentiment both simple and profound. His words acknowledged the fundamental truth that no parent should have to endure the loss of a child, particularly not under circumstances tied to a technology they believed would connect rather than harm. Prince Harry then offered a broader context for their struggle, framing it as part of a larger fight for truth and justice. He referenced the legal system as a venue where powerful entities are challenged by individuals seeking accountability, likening the parents' pursuit to a transformation of their grief into purpose. Throughout his remarks, he reminded those gathered that emotional responses, even tears, were natural and human, especially given the gravity of the issues being debated in the courtroom. While acknowledging that judges or legal proceedings sometimes discourage emotional display, he encouraged the families to recognize the legitimacy and depth of their feelings. By speaking openly about the emotional toll of long legal battles and public advocacy, Prince Harry connected his own experiences with the profound loss felt by the parents, reinforcing a sense of shared struggle and empathy. A broader legal and social context. The backdrop to this gathering is a lawsuit that could have significant implications for global accountability in technology and online safety. The civil case in California seeks to establish that the platforms in question knowingly designed features, including infinite scrolling, algorithmic recommendation engines, and psychologically optimized reward systems, that deliberately encourage extended use, even when that use harms vulnerable populations. Plaintiffs argue that these designs are not accidental byproducts of technological progress, but intentional features engineered to prioritize engagement time and profit. In many cases, expert testimony presented by families' legal teams points to internal research held by these companies that acknowledges the addictive potential of their products, particularly among adolescents and children. These arguments raise complex questions about responsibility, corporate ethics, regulatory oversight, and the limits of free expression versus corporate misconduct. If the court finds in favor of the plaintiffs, it could trigger widespread changes to how social media platforms are regulated around the world, and introduce a host of legal precedents establishing that technology companies owe more robust obligations to protect youth from harm. Families' stories, personal loss and public fight. The parents present in Los Angeles brought with them deeply personal stories of loss. Many recounted how their children, once vibrant, curious, and full of promise, began to spend increasing amounts of time online. What began as casual use for entertainment or social connection evolved, in some cases, into obsessive browsing, exposure to harmful trends, and encounters with content that amplified feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and distress. For many parents, the road to the courtroom has been long and emotionally exhausting. Some families spent months or years trying to access data about their children's online activity, only to face resistance from technology companies or ambiguous responses that left more questions than answers. Their legal claims often include frustration over a lack of transparency and cooperation from platforms when it comes to understanding what their children were exposed to and how algorithms may have shaped their online journeys. For many, the lawsuit offered not just a path toward accountability, but a way to transform their grief into action. Their legal teams, composed of advocates, psychologists, digital safety experts, and attorneys, argue that meaningful change requires both public scrutiny and structural reform. The global conversation on online safety. Prince Harry's involvement has drawn broader attention to the issue of social media's impact on children and youth. His personal advocacy on digital harms is not new. He and his wife, the Duchess of Sussex, have previously championed efforts focused on child welfare and responsible technology use. In public statements and appearances over the past several years, the Duke and Duchess have worked to raise awareness about online harms, especially for young people. Their charitable initiatives have sought to provide support networks, resources, and advocacy platforms for families affected by cyberbullying, privacy breaches, addiction-like engagement patterns, and other online threats. This activism resonates with a growing global conversation about digital well-being. Governments, independent researchers, child psychologists, educators, and advocacy groups in many countries have been urging more robust protections for young people in digital environments. Some regions have introduced legislation to limit certain online practices for minors, others have mandated greater transparency from technology companies, and ongoing debates continue to explore age verification, algorithmic auditing, and user data protection. The Los Angeles civil case, and Prince Harry's emotional address, have amplified these debates, bringing personal narratives into legal and public spheres in ways that underscore the urgency of addressing online harms. Reflections on grief, accountability, and hope. For the families in attendance, the magnitude of their pain was a palpable presence throughout the evening. Yet, their conversations were also marked by a steadfast determination to seek change. Many spoke of the need for systems that protect children, that honor lived experiences, and that prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. Parents expressed appreciation for the visibility that Prince Harry's presence brought to their fight, not as a media spectacle but as a form of solidarity. His words, at once empathetic and purposeful, underscored the importance of acknowledging human emotion in the midst of legal battles and societal debates. As the evening concluded, families left with a renewed sense of community and shared resolve. They had gathered not only as individuals mourning the loss of their children, but as advocates striving to ensure that others might be spared similar grief. What comes next? The legal proceedings will continue in the coming weeks and months, and many expect this case to set important precedents. As testimonies unfold, expert witnesses take the stand, and evidence is presented, global audiences will be watching not just for legal outcomes, but for deeper insights into how technology intersects with youth mental health. For Prince Harry, his remarks that night were more than a speech. They represented a call to acknowledge the full human cost of digital harm. By speaking directly to families and validating their experiences, he helped put a personal face on a complex societal challenge. In a world where digital platforms increasingly shape the lives of young people, the emotional impact of these technologies, both positive and negative, will remain a subject of public discourse and policy consideration. For families who have suffered immeasurable loss, the fight for justice and accountability continues, fueled by a hope that this moment represents a turning point in the way society understands and responds to online harm.